My name is Ainsley and today is my 22nd birthday. I should be celebrating my college graduation and upcoming dream job at the marketing firm. Instead, I sit here staring at the loan papers my father just slid across our dining room table. My car, which I saved 3 years for, is gone. My college fund, built with help from my grandparents, emptied. All for my sister Brooke, who needs a fresh start again. The family meeting my parents called tonight was never about celebrating me. I sense the walls closing in as my father waits for my answer. Let me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button before I tell you how my birthday turned into the night I lost my family but found myself. Growing up in our suburban home in Pennsylvania, we looked like the perfect American family. My father Frank worked as a mechanical engineer, bringing home a comfortable salary that afforded us a nice 4-bedroom house with a spacious backyard. My mother Diana taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school, always returning home with creative projects and stories about her students. Then there was my sister Brooke, 3 years younger than me, and me, Ainsley, the responsible firstborn. The family photos lining our hallway showed smiling faces at Disney World, beach vacations in Florida, and holiday gatherings with extended family. But photographs only capture moments, not the shifting dynamics that occurred as we grew older. Our family functioned well when Brooke and I were young. I was the quiet, studious child who enjoyed reading and article. Brooke was more outgoing, charming adults with her quick wit and sunny personality. The problems began when Brooke entered her teenage years. At 14, she started hanging out with a crowd my parents didn't approve of, staying out past curfew and talking back when confronted. I still remember the first major incident. Brooke, then 15, took Mom's car without permission and scratched the entire passenger side when she misjudged the distance to a mailbox. Instead of consequences, my parents focused on how scared and sorry she was. Dad fixed the car himself on the weekend and Mom comforted Brooke, saying, "Everyone makes mistakes." That became the pattern. Brooke would cross a line, show remorse and receive forgiveness without real accountability. Meanwhile, I continued being the daughter who never caused trouble, who earned straight A's, who helped around the house without being asked. It seemed like my good behavior was expected while Brooke's occasional compliance was celebrated. During my junior year of high school, I worked weekends and summers at a local coffee shop, saving every dollar I could. By the time I graduated, I had enough for a down payment on a used Toyota Corolla. Nothing fancy, but it was mine, bought with my own money. My parents contributed a small amount as a graduation gift, but I made every monthly payment myself while balancing college classes and a part-time job. "Ainsley is so independent," relatives would comment at family gatherings, while my parents nodded proudly. What went unsaid was that my independence wasn't entirely by choice. I learned early that if I wanted something, I needed to make it happen myself. College was similar. I received a partial academic scholarship and my grandparents had set up a modest college fund for me when I was born. It covered about half of my expenses. For the rest, I worked 20 hours a week at the university library and took out minimal student loans. I budgeted carefully, rarely joined classmates for expensive outings, and graduated with honors in marketing and a manageable amount of debt. Brooke, on the other hand, started college at a private university with tuition nearly triple what my state school cost. She lasted 1 year before dropping out, explaining that college isn't for everyone and she needed to find her path. She moved back home, cycling through retail jobs every few months, always with a reason why each position wasn't the right fit. Despite these differences, I loved my sister. When we weren't fighting over her borrowing my clothes without asking or her loud music keeping me awake during exam week, we could still laugh together over inside jokes and reminisce about childhood adventures, but there was always tension beneath the surface. A sense that the rules were different for each of us. After graduation, I was thrilled to receive a job offer from a marketing firm in Philadelphia. The salary wasn't extraordinary for an entry-level position, but it offered growth potential and aligned perfectly with my career goals. I planned to live at home for 6 months to save money before getting my own apartment in the city. The week before my birthday, life seemed to be falling into place. I had a degree, a car, minimal student debt, and a job lined up to start in 3 weeks. My birthday dinner was supposed to be a celebration of these achievements before I began the next chapter of my life. I spent the day of my birthday shopping for professional clothes for my new job, treating myself to a nicer outfit than I would typically buy. When I returned home, Mom was preparing my favorite meal, roast chicken with garlic, mashed potatoes and green beans. The kitchen smelt amazing but the atmosphere felt off. Mom seemed distracted, checking her phone frequently and avoiding eye contact. Need any help? I offered, setting down my shopping bags. No honey, everything is under control. Why don't you relax until dinner? Your father and Brooke should be home soon, she replied, her voice slightly higher pitched than normal. I headed upstairs to my room, passing Brooke's closed door. Music played softly inside, which was unusual for her typically thunderous taste. Something definitely felt strange, but I pushed the feeling aside. It was my birthday and I was determined to enjoy the evening with my family. At 6:30 we gathered around the dining table. Dad carved the chicken while Mom brought out the sides. Brooke sat across from me, scrolling through her phone until Mom asked her to put it away. The conversation felt stilted with long pauses and topics that never went beyond surface-level small talk. How was shopping? Mom asked, passing me the mashed potatoes. Good. I found some nice pieces for work, I replied, waiting for someone to ask about the new job, but no one did. Dad cleared his throat. Ainsley, we have your birthday presents after dinner. Usually my family made a big production of birthday celebrations with candles, singing and opening gifts before the meal. This year everything felt rushed and obligatory. After dinner Mom brought out a small chocolate cake from the local grocery store instead of the homemade carrot cake she traditionally baked for my birthday. The candles were hastily stuck into the frosting slightly off-center. Make a wish, Brooke said flatly, her smile not reaching her eyes. I closed my eyes, wishing for clarity about the strange tension in the room, then blew out the 22 candles in one breath. Dad handed me a small gift bag containing a pair of earrings I had admired months ago. Mom gave me a gift card to a clothing store. Brooke passed me a handmade coupon for sister movie night, the same gift she had given me for Christmas but never honored when I tried to redeem it. Thank you, I said, trying to mask my confusion at the subdued celebration. As Mom collected the wrapping paper, Dad placed his hands flat on the table. We need to have a family discussion. Why don't we move to the living room? We relocated to the more formal sitting area, rarely used except for holidays or serious conversations. My stomach tightened as we took our seats, my parents on the couch, Brooke in the armchair and me on the love seat. Dad leaned forward, hands clasped between his knees. Ainsley, you know we've always tried to do what's best for this family. Sometimes that means making difficult decisions. Mom fidgeted with her wedding ring, a nervous habit she had when uncomfortable. Brooke stared at the carpet, picking at a loose thread on her jeans. What's going on? I asked, the birthday cake sitting heavy in my stomach. Dad took a deep breath. We've had to make some financial adjustments. As you know, Brooke has been going through a difficult time and she needs our support to get back on her feet. I nodded slowly, still not understanding where this was heading. We've sold your car, Dad continued, his voice steady, and we've also cashed out the remainder of your college fund. The words hit me like physical blows. My car. My money. Gone. What do you mean? I whispered, hoping I had misheard. Your sister deserves a fresh start, Dad explained, as if this clarified everything. She's accumulated some significant debt and as a family we need to help her resolve it before it damages her future permanently. I looked at Brooke, who continued avoiding my gaze. How much did I manage to ask? $30,000. Mom interjected quickly. The collection agencies are calling daily, and her credit is already severely damaged. My mind reeled. $30,000. The car I had worked so hard for sold without my consent. The remaining college fund that was in my name emptied. Did you even have the right to access my college account? I asked, my voice shaking. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Your grandfather set it up with me as the custodian until you turned 25 legally, yes. The betrayal deepened as I realized this decision hadn't been made today. They must have sold my car and withdrawn the money days or even weeks ago, all while planning my birthday dinner as if nothing was wrong. When did you do this? I asked. The car sold last week, Dad admitted. And we withdrew the college funds the week before that. Were you even going to tell me if I hadn't noticed my car was missing? The Toyota had been parked at a friend's house while I borrowed Mom's car for shopping, so I hadn't yet discovered its absence. No one answered directly, which was answer enough. Then Dad reached for a folder on the coffee table and slid a document toward me. There's one more thing. Brooke needs a cosigner for a consolidation loan to manage this debt. With your new job you have the income to qualify. I stared at the loan agreement in disbelief. You want me to cosign a $30,000 loan for her after taking my car and my savings? It's the only way to protect her credit and give her the fresh start she needs, Mom explained, as if this request was perfectly reasonable. And if I don't? The question hung in the air. Dad's expression hardened. Then you'll need to find somewhere else to live. We can't have you undermining family unity when we're trying to help your sister. In that moment, looking at their expectant faces, I realized they truly believed I owed this to them, that my years of responsibility, hard work and self-sufficiency meant I should now sacrifice my financial future for my sister's mistakes. That my birthday gift was an ultimatum: co-sign her massive debt or get out. The room spun slightly as the full weight of their betrayal settled on my shoulders. Can we talk privately? I asked, looking at my parents. Without Brooke. Dad hesitated but nodded. Brooke, give us a few minutes. My sister left the room without protest, throwing me a quick, unreadable glance. Once we were alone, I tried to remain calm. How could you sell my car without even talking to me first? I paid for most of it myself. The title was still partially in my name as cosigner, Dad said defensively. And you have a good job lined up. You can buy another car once you start working. That's not the point, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to control it. That car represented years of hard work. You had no right to sell it without even discussing it with me. You've always had everything come easily to you, Ainsley. Dad snapped, his patience visibly thinning. Good grades, scholarships, job offers. Your sister struggles in ways you never had to. His words stung with their unfairness. Nothing had come easily to me. I had worked for every achievement while watching Brooke receive second chances and financial bailouts repeatedly. What exactly does Brooke owe $30,000 for? I asked. 1 year of college couldn't possibly cost that much with financial aid. My parents exchanged glances, and Mom sighed. It's not just college. There are credit card debts, a personal loan and some other financial issues. What other issues? I pressed. She was evicted from her apartment last month, Dad admitted reluctantly. There were damages that weren't covered by the security deposit. And she took out some high-interest loans to cover expenses when she lost her last job. The story kept getting worse. Why am I just hearing about this now? She was evicted a month ago and you never mentioned it. We were trying to handle it without worrying you, Mom said. You were focused on graduation and your new job. Is she living here now? Is that why her door has been closed all week? They nodded. She moved back in after the eviction. I took a deep breath, trying to process this new information. And the boyfriend, Tyler. Is he involved in this? Another uncomfortable exchange of glances between my parents. Tyler has had his own financial difficulties, Mom said carefully. He may have encouraged some of Brooke's spending habits. So, you're telling me Brooke ran up massive debt partially because of her deadbeat boyfriend got evicted from her apartment, and your solution is to sell my car, take my savings and make me legally responsible for her debt? The absurdity of it all was almost laughable. Except nothing about this situation was funny. When you put it that way it sounds harsh, Dad said, frowning. But family helps family. When you needed braces, we found a way. When you wanted to go to that expensive art camp in high school, we made it work. I worked all summer to pay for half of that art camp, I reminded him. And braces are a necessary medical expense for a child. Not the same as bailing out an adult who keeps making bad choices. Your sister is not a bad person, Mom interjected tearfully. She's just made some mistakes. I never said she was a bad person. I love Brooke. But this isn't about love. It's about fairness and responsibility. When I needed money for college, I got scholarships and worked while studying. No one sold Brooke's possessions to fund my education. Dad's face reddened. That's because you're the older sister. You're supposed to look out for her. Look out for her, yes. Sacrifice my financial future and credit score for her, that was never part of the deal. My voice cracked with emotion. I can't believe you did this behind my back on my birthday of all days. We thought it would be easier this way, Mom said softly. Having everyone together, making it a family decision. Except it wasn't a family decision. You and Dad decided, and now you're forcing me to either comply or leave my home. Dad stood up abruptly. I think you're being selfish, Ainsley. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us, by refusing to help your sister when she's in trouble. His accusation hit hard. Was I being selfish? No, this went beyond normal family help. They had crossed a line, taking my possessions, my savings, and now demanding I put my own credit at risk. I need time to think, I said finally. You have until tomorrow evening to decide, Dad said firmly. Either sign the loan papers or find somewhere else to stay. I won't have this family divided any longer. As they left the room, I remained on the love seat, feeling more alone than I ever had in my own home. The ultimatum hung in the air like a physical presence, suffocating me with its weight. 24 hours to decide between financial suicide or homelessness. All on my birthday. Alone in my bedroom, I finally allowed the tears to come. They streamed down my face silently at first. Then turned into deep, gut-wrenching sobs that I muffled with my pillow. This was supposed to be a milestone birthday, marking my transition from student to professional, celebrating all I had accomplished. Instead, it had become the day my family showed me where I truly stood in their priorities. I sat at my desk, surrounded by reminders of my life. Photos of friends from college. Academic awards framed on the wall. The business card from my new employer that I had proudly displayed on my bulletin board. Everything represented years of hard work and determination, all of which seemed meaningless now in the face of my family's betrayal. My phone buzzed with a birthday text from Jordan, my closest friend from university. Happy birthday, rockstar. Hope your family is spoiling you rotten today. Call me tomorrow with all the details. Jordan lived in Pittsburgh, about 200 miles away, where she had started a job right after graduation. We had talked about being roommates if I got a job offer there, but fate had pulled us to different cities. I stared at her message, wondering what she would say if she knew what was really happening. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this betrayal didn't come out of nowhere. There had been warning signs throughout our childhood, moments when Brooke's needs superseded mine. When I qualified for a state science competition in 10th grade, but no one came to watch because it was the same day as Brooke's soccer game. When my high school graduation celebration was cut short because Brooke was having friend drama that required immediate family intervention. When I made the dean's list every semester in college but rarely received more than a quick "good job" text, while Brooke's smallest achievements warranted family celebrations. I had always rationalized these moments, telling myself that Brooke needed more support, that my parents trusted me to understand. But selling my car and emptying my savings without even discussing it with me first. That crossed a line I couldn't ignore. Opening my desk drawer, I found the folder where I kept important documents. My car title was missing, of course, but I found the original purchase agreement. The Toyota had been worth at least $7,000 in good condition, which mine was. How much had Dad sold it for? And my college fund had contained nearly $5,000 earmarked for my first apartment, security deposit and furnishings. Digging deeper, I found bank statements showing that my college fund had indeed been emptied 2 weeks ago. They'd been planning this for at least 14 days, all while preparing for my birthday dinner as if nothing was wrong. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. I wiped my eyes quickly, but there was no hiding that I had been crying. Come in. I called, expecting Mom with a peace offering of tea or leftover birthday cake. Instead, Brooke slipped inside, closing the door behind her. Her eyes were red-rimmed, too, mascara slightly smudged at the corners. Hey, she said awkwardly, hovering near the door. Hey. I didn't know what else to say to the sister whose debts had just cost me my car and savings. I know you must hate me right now, she began, her voice small. I don't hate you, Brooke. I just don't understand how we got here. She sat on the edge of my bed, keeping distance between us. It all happened so fast. Tyler said he knew how to invest money and make quick returns. I gave him some cash, then took out a credit card to give him more when he said we just needed a bigger investment to see real profits. Let me guess. There were never any investments, I said flatly. Brooke shook her head, fresh tears spilling. He was gambling. Online poker, sports betting, all of it. By the time I figured it out, I was already maxed out on 3 credit cards. Then he convinced me to take out a personal loan to cover some of his debts because his credit was already ruined. Why didn't you come to me earlier before it got this bad? I was embarrassed, she admitted. And I kept thinking I could fix it myself, get another job, pay it off slowly. But then the eviction happened. And the collection calls started and Tyler left. Her voice trailed off. Tyler left. This was news to me. Last week. Took my laptop and television with him. She laughed bitterly. Guess I should be grateful he didn't clean out my bank account too, though. That's probably because there was nothing left to take. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. Brooke had been taken advantage of by someone she trusted. But that didn't explain or excuse our parents' actions. Why did Mom and Dad think selling my car and taking my savings was the answer? Why not help you file for bankruptcy or find some other solution? Brooke looked down, picking at a loose thread on my comforter. Dad said bankruptcy would follow me forever, make it impossible for me to rent an apartment or get a decent job. He said a family loan would be cleaner. Except it's not a family loan if I'm the only one contributing, I pointed out. They're not using their retirement funds or taking out a home equity loan, they're just sacrificing my assets and my credit. I know, she whispered. I told them it wasn't fair to you, but Dad said you were the only one who could qualify to co-sign because of your new job and good credit score. He said it would all work out because I'll pay you back every cent, I promise. I had heard such promises before. And what happens when the next financial emergency comes up? Will they sell my future car too, take money from my 401 Kelvins? You don't understand, Ainsley. My life will be ruined if you don't help. Brooke pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. I'll never get an apartment, a car loan, anything. Please just sign the papers. I swear I'll make the payments. In that moment everything crystallized. This wasn't a one-time crisis. It was a pattern that had played out our entire lives. Brooke would create chaos. And I would be expected to sacrifice to restore order. My parents would always choose her needs over my boundaries. Nothing would change, unless I changed it. I can't sign the loan papers, Brooke. I said quietly but firmly. I love you, but I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep you warm. So, that's it, you're just going to abandon me, abandon this family. Her sympathy act dropped, replaced by familiar accusatory anger. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm refusing to be financially exploited by the people who should be protecting me. She stormed out, slamming my door hard enough to rattle the pictures on my wall. I flinched at the sound but felt strangely calm inside. For the first time in years I was seeing my family dynamic with perfect clarity, painful as that vision was. I couldn't stay here. Not just because of Dad's ultimatum, but because I finally understood that nothing would change as long as I remained. I would always be the responsible one, the one expected to sacrifice, the one whose needs came last. It was time to protect myself, even if that meant walking away from the only home I had ever known. The house grew quiet around midnight. Through my wall I could hear Brooke's muffled sobs, but I hardened my heart against the familiar sound. Too often those tears had been weaponized to manipulate me into giving in, not this time. I pulled my largest suitcase from the closet and began packing methodically. Clothes for interviews and work, important documents, treasured photographs and mementos. I couldn't take everything, but I could take what mattered most. As I sorted through my belongings I made a mental list of what needed to be done. First I called Jordan despite the late hour. Ainsley, is everything okay? Her voice was groggy with sleep. No, I admitted, keeping my voice low. I need somewhere to stay for a while. Could I crash on your couch for a few days until I figure things out? Of course, she said without hesitation, sounding more alert now. What happened? I gave her the condensed version, each word, making the situation more real. I'll tell you everything when I get there. When will that be? She asked. I'm leaving tonight. I'll catch the first bus in the morning. Text me your arrival time. I'll pick you up at the Station. The immediate support brought fresh tears to my eyes. Thank you, Jordan. After ending the call, I turned to my laptop. I needed to email my new employer about starting earlier than planned and ask about recommendations for short-term housing in Philadelphia. Then I transferred what little money remained in my shared bank account to a new account my parents couldn't access. I changed all my passwords and recovery email addresses, ensuring no one could access my accounts. Then I updated my address on important websites and services, using Jordan's apartment for now. The hardest part came next. I sat down at my desk and began writing a letter to my family. Not a hasty note scribbled in anger, but a thoughtful explanation of my feelings and decision. To my family. By the time you read this, I will be gone. This is not a decision I made lightly or in the heat of the moment. It is the culmination of years of feeling undervalued and taken for granted. Dad, Mom, I love you both, but what you did was wrong. You sold my car without my permission. You emptied my savings without consulting me. Then you expected me to take on $30,000 of debt for Brooke as if I owed this to you. This goes beyond normal family support into something unhealthy and exploitative. I will not sign the loan papers. I cannot and will not be financially responsible for Brooke's debts. This boundary is not negotiable. I also will not stay in a home where my property and autonomy are not respected. You gave me an ultimatum to either sacrifice my financial future or leave. I am choosing to leave. Brooke, I hope you find your way through this difficult time. I believe you can overcome these challenges if you take responsibility for your actions and make different choices going forward. Your mistakes do not define you, but how you respond to them will. I am not cutting contact permanently, but I need space and time to process this betrayal. Please do not try to find me or convince me to return home under the same conditions. I will reach out when I am ready. Know that I love you all, but I have to love myself enough to walk away from a situation that harms me. Ainsley. I sealed the letter in an envelope and placed it on my pillow where it would be easily found. Then I returned to packing, working quietly through the night. By 3 in the morning I had everything essential packed and ready. Before leaving, I gently knocked on Brooke's door. To my surprise, she was still awake, sitting on her bed surrounded by tissues. You're leaving, aren't you? She asked, taking in my packed suitcase. I nodded. I have to. Where will you go? I'd rather not say right now, I replied, maintaining a boundary I knew was necessary. She looked smaller, somehow younger than her 19 years. I really messed up, didn't I? Yes, I said honestly. But this isn't just about you, Brooke. It's about the dynamic in this family that allows these situations to keep happening. You need to take responsibility for your own life. Stop expecting others to fix your mistakes. Easy for you to say. Everything always works out for you, she muttered, echoing Dad's earlier sentiment. Things work out for me because I make consistently responsible choices. I corrected her. That's not luck or favoritism. It's cause and effect. She didn't respond, just stared at her hands. I love you, I said at the door. But I can't keep enabling you. None of us are helping you by continuing this pattern. I left before she could respond, quietly making my way downstairs with my suitcase. I placed my house key on the kitchen counter next to the untouched birthday cake still sitting in its box. Then I stepped outside into the cool night air, closing the doors softly behind me. The weight on my shoulders felt simultaneously heavier and lighter as I walked to the bus stop 3 blocks away. Heavier with the sadness of leaving home under such circumstances, lighter with the knowledge that I was finally standing up for myself. The first bus to Pittsburgh would leave at 5:15 Uhr. I sat at the deserted station, watching the sky gradually lighten with the approach of dawn. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Brooke, but I didn't read them. This boundary was too important to compromise, even in the face of her distress. As the bus pulled away from my hometown, I watched familiar streets recede through the window. 22 years of memories, good and bad, grew smaller in the distance. Tears slid down my cheeks, but they weren't entirely sad tears. There was relief mixed with the grief. Hope tangled with the hurt. The journey to Pittsburgh took nearly 4 hours. I spent most of it staring out the window watching the Pennsylvania landscape roll by small towns, giving way to farmland, then suburbs, then finally the Pittsburgh skyline appeared in the distance. Jordan was waiting at the Busstation, her warm smile, a beacon in the uncertainty of my new reality. She hugged me tightly, then grabbed my suitcase without a word, leading me to her car. "You can stay as long as you need," she said as we drove to her apartment. "My roommate's cool with ET." "Thank you," I replied, the words inadequate for the lifeline she had thrown me. "I'll start looking for my own place right away." "No rush, let's get you settled first." She glanced at my phone, which I had finally turned off after the 20th call from my parents. "Are you going to talk to them?" "Not yet," I said firmly. "I need space to think clearly without their voices in my head." She nodded, understanding without judgment. "Your birthday was yesterday, right? Let's get some real cake and celebrate properly tonight. No family drama, just your new beginning." For the first time in 24 hours I smiled genuinely. I'd like that. The next week passed in a blur of activity. Jordan's apartment became my temporary sanctuary as I rebuilt my life piece by piece. Her roommate Tara graciously gave me space on their couch and never complained about the extra person in their small 2-bedroom unit. I contacted my new employer, explaining that my living situation had changed unexpectedly and asking if I could start earlier than planned. They were surprisingly accommodating, allowing me to begin the following Monday rather than waiting 3 more weeks. With a steady income on the horizon, I started apartment hunting in Philadelphia, using virtual tours to narrow down options. The hardest part was the constant barrage of calls and messages from my family. After 3 days of silence, I finally turned my phone back on to find 67 missed calls, 42 voicemails and over 100 text messages. The notifications made my stomach churn with anxiety. I didn't listen to the voicemails or read all the texts, but I scrolled through enough to get a sense of their progression, from angry demands to return home immediately, to guilt-inducing reminders of all they had done for me, to desperate pleas about how my absence was destroying the family. On the 4th day, I received a call from Mrs. Winters, my mother's best friend since college. I answered, suspecting she had been enlisted as a neutral messenger. "Ainsley, honey, your parents are beside themselves," she began without preamble. "Your father has been driving around looking for you, checking hotels and friends' houses. Your mother hasn't stopped crying since they found your letter." "I'm safe," I assured her. "That's all they need to know right now." "And Brooke?" Mrs. Winters hesitated. "Well, she's in quite a state. The collection agencies keep calling, and apparently the debt is even larger than your parents initially thought." This didn't surprise me. "How much larger?" "I don't know the exact figure, but from what your mother said it's closer to 40,030. I closed my eyes, absorbing this new information. Did Brooke know the real amount when they asked me to co-sign? "I can't say for certain," Mrs. Winters replied diplomatically, "but between us I think she's been hiding the full extent of her financial troubles for some time." After ending the call with a promise to consider reaching out to my parents soon, I sat in Jordan's kitchen processing what I had learned. The situation was even worse than I had thought, confirming that walking away had been the right decision. A few days later, my neighbor from home, Mr. Sullivan, texted me. He had always been kind to me, sometimes hiring me for odd jobs around his house when I needed extra money in high school. "Your father came by asking if I knew where you were," his message read. I said I didn't, but I thought you should know that Brooke finally came clean to your parents about everything. The debt is bigger than they knew, and she apparently used your home address to secure additional loans without their knowledge. Your dad looked pretty shaken up. The revelation sent a chill through me. If Brooke had used our family home address for loans, could my parents be held responsible? Could their house be at risk? Despite everything, I didn't want them to lose their home because of her actions. I consulted with a free legal aid service in Pittsburgh, explaining the situation and asking about potential liabilities. The attorney advised me to completely separate my finances from my family to protect myself and suggested my parents do the same with Brooke. The fact that they were planning to have you co-sign suggests they're aware of the seriousness of the situation, the attorney explained. They need their own legal counsel immediately if their property might be involved. I forwarded this advice to my mother in a brief factual email, the first direct contact I had initiated since leaving. Her response came within minutes, a flood of emotions and pleas for me to come home so we could fix this together as a family. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say that wouldn't either give false hope or cause more pain. Meanwhile, I secured a small studio apartment in Philadelphia, signed the lease electronically and arranged to move in the following week. My new employer connected me with a young financial advisor, who helped me create a budget that accounted for my reduced savings and the need to purchase another used car. "You're in better shape than you might think," she assured me, after reviewing my finances. "Your credit score is excellent, you have minimal student loan debt, and your new salary will cover your basic expenses with some left over for savings. Many people your age are in much worse financial situations." Her words were reassuring, but they also highlighted the unfairness of what my family had expected from me. They had wanted me to sacrifice the stable foundation I had worked so hard to build, all to enable my sister's continued financial irresponsibility. Exactly 1 month after my birthday, my father called. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Ainsley," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "It's time to stop this nonsense and come home." "I'm not coming home, Dad," I replied calmly. "I have an apartment in Philadelphia and I've already started my new job." There was a long pause before he spoke again. "We made mistakes," he admitted reluctantly. "We should have talked to you first about the car and the college fund. But you've made your point now and this situation with Brooke has gotten out of hand. We need your help." "What kind of help?" I asked warily. "Financial advice mostly. You are always good with money." The irony of this statement, after they had taken my savings without permission, was not lost on me. "And maybe a loan to help cover some of the immediate debts, until we can sell some things." I almost laughed. "You're asking me for money after what happened?" "Family helps family," he repeated his earlier mantra but with less conviction. "I'm sorry, Dad, but no. I can't and won't get financially involved in this situation. I've sent Mom information about credit counseling services and bankruptcy attorneys. That's the kind of help I can offer right now." "So you're just abandoning us when things get tough?" His tone shifted to accusation. "I never thought you were selfish, Ainsley, but maybe I was wrong." The comment stung, but I recognized it as a manipulation tactic. "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm maintaining healthy boundaries. There's a difference." He hung up without saying goodbye. Later that night I received a lengthy text message from my mother. It was a strange mixture of apology and blame, acknowledging they had handled things poorly but suggesting I was being unnecessarily harsh by staying away. "We miss you so much," she wrote. "The house feels empty without you. Brooke asks about you every day. Can't we start over and try to heal as a family?" I didn't respond immediately, letting her words sit with me as I prepared dinner in my new apartment. Starting over sounded nice in theory. But what would it actually mean in practice? Would anything really change? Or would I be expected to forgive and forget without any real accountability? As I was considering how to respond, a final message arrived, this one from Brooke. Unlike my parents' communications, it was brief and straightforward. "You were right. I need to change. I'm sorry." Those 8 words gave me more hope for eventual reconciliation than all my parents' lengthy explanations and emotional appeals. Perhaps this crisis had finally pushed Brooke toward the self-awareness she needed to make different choices. 6 months after leaving home on my birthday night, I sat across from my mother at a coffee shop halfway between Philadelphia and my hometown. It was our first face-to-face meeting since everything had happened arranged after weeks of cautious text exchanges. My life had found a new rhythm in Philadelphia. My tiny studio apartment wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, decorated with second-hand furniture and plants that made it feel like home. The marketing job challenged me in good ways, and I had already received positive feedback from supervisors. I had saved enough for a down payment on another used car, a Honda this time, slightly older than my Toyota but reliable. Mom looked older than I remembered, new lines around her eyes and mouth. She fidgeted with her coffee cup, nervous in a way I rarely saw her. "You look good," she said finally. "Healthy, happy." "I am," I replied honestly. "It was hard at first but I'm doing well now." She nodded, eyes downcast. "I owe you an apology, Ainsley. A real one, not the half-apologies we've been sending in texts and emails." I waited, giving her space to continue. "What we did was wrong," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "We betrayed your trust. We took advantage of your responsibility and independence. We treated you unfairly compared to Brooke, and we've been doing it for years." The acknowledgement loosened something tight in my chest. "Why?" I asked simply. "Why was it always different rules for us?" Mom sighed deeply. "Brooke struggled in ways you didn't seem to. From early on she had trouble in school making friends, following rules. We thought she needed extra support, extra protection. But somewhere along the way we stopped requiring accountability from her. We enabled her worst tendencies instead of helping her develop better ones." "And me," I prompted. "You seemed so capable, so self-sufficient. We told ourselves you didn't need as much attention or support." She met my eyes directly. "We were wrong. We leaned on your strength instead of nurturing it. We took you for granted." Her honesty was both healing and painful. "What's happening with Brooke now?" I asked. "She's in therapy," Mom replied. "Financial therapy, actually. We didn't even know that existed before all this. She's working part-time at the library and taking a money management course at the community college." "And the debt?" "We're working with a debt consolidation service. Your father and I took out a home equity loan to cover the most pressing debts. It will take years to pay everything off, but we have a plan now." She hesitated before adding, "Brooke contributes part of every paycheck. It's not much, but it's something." "And Dad, how is he?" Mom's expression tightened slightly. "Struggling. His pride took a hit when we had to ask his brother for a loan. He knows we handled things terribly with you, but admitting it fully is still difficult for him." I nodded, unsurprised. Dad had always found vulnerability challenging. "He misses you," Mom added softly. "We all Donnerstag." "I miss you too," I admitted. "But I don't regret leaving. It was what I needed to do for myself." "I know that now," Mom said. "As painful as it's been, your leaving forced us all to face some hard truths about our family dynamics." We talked for nearly 3 hours, covering ground we should have explored years ago. There were tears on both sides, moments of tension, but also glimpses of understanding that hadn't existed before. Before we parted, Mom asked hesitantly, "Will you come home for Christmas?" "No pressure, just a day visit if you're comfortable. Your father and Brooke would love to see you." I considered the request carefully. "Maybe. Not for the whole day, and I'll need to see how I feel as we get closer to the date. But maybe." She nodded, accepting my boundary without pushing. It was a small thing, but it represented progress. Back in my apartment that evening, I reflected on everything that had happened since my 22nd birthday. The past 6 months had taught me more about myself and relationships than the previous 22 years combined. I had built a new support system in Philadelphia, making friends at work and joining a book club, where I met people with similar interests. I had connected with a support group for adults from dysfunctional families, finding comfort in sharing experiences with others who understood the complex emotions involved. Most importantly, I had learned to value myself enough to set and maintain boundaries even when it was painful to do so. I opened my journal and wrote the lessons this experience had taught me. Love without boundaries isn't really love. It's dependence and enablement. Helping someone doesn't mean taking responsibility for their choices or shielding them from consequences. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop rescuing them and let them face reality. True family supports your growth and respects your autonomy, not just when it's convenient. It's possible to love people deeply while still maintaining healthy distance from toxic behaviors. The journey of healing family relationships is rarely linear, and reconciliation doesn't erase the need for continued boundaries. Looking out the window at the Philadelphia skyline, I felt a sense of peace that had been absent during those turbulent days following my birthday. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear, and the relationship with my family would require ongoing work from all sides. But, for perhaps the first time in my life, I was making choices based on what was truly best for me, not what others expected or demanded. Sometimes the most profound growth comes from the most painful experiences. Sometimes you have to lose the family you were born into to find the strength to create the life you deserve. I picked up my phone and typed a message to my sister. Proud of you for making changes. Keep going. Love you. It was a small step but an important one. Healing would take time, but it had already begun. Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship to protect yourself even when it broke your heart? I would love to hear your stories in the comments. Remember that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for your well-being. Please like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose yourself sometimes. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth is never determined by how much you sacrifice for others.